Hello.
Just quick, you got your way. I'll get it. And you got water hidden down there. Thank you. All right, everyone. Welcome to what's kind of the grand, the grand finale part of our day. We're going to do our honoree recognitions. I'm going to hand it over to our brilliant CISO panel, and then I'll be able to Vanna White marathon through our prize giveaway. So just to clarify, it's a tradition in every city, all 30 cities we hit every year, to do a little special recognition for what we call our honorary attendees. So that's all of you wearing a gold or yellow lanyard. What that means is that we do internal polling. It could be a local colleague, reached out to our team internally and wanted to nominate you for a little recognition for your contributions to the cybersecurity community here in Greater Orlando. And sometimes it's our own team where it's like, that person's aspirational. We'd be honored to have them join us, especially at a conference like this where it's our inaugural. So you deserve, those of you that we want all of you, we think all of you are honorees, but from these nominations, we just want to give a little special recognition today. So we have I'll call your name, we have a little certificate of recognition, and then there's a little note with a gift inside from our team for you. So let's go ahead and start off with, I have Yasmin El Kudrani from Marriott Systems Analyst. Are you here, Yasmin? Hey, these attacks, these threats never stop. Not so we'll say here in spirit. I know she was here earlier today, but we'll say here in spirit, and we'll give Yasmin a round of applause for being here on top of the pile. We'll move next to Renato Albuja from the Walt Disney Company, Cybersecurity Architect. Congratulations, thank you. W. Lee Mikkel from the First National Bank of Wauchula, COO. Very good. Thank you. Emmanuel Morales from Lockheed Martin, Infrastructure Security Engineer. You are my friend. Congratulations. Robert Burgett, CISO from Qualys. All right. Chelsea Hernandez from Whitecap, Manager, Information Security, Governance and Risk Management. Efrain Ramos from PetIQ, Cybersecurity Manager. Here in spirit. Derek Smith from the Walt Disney Company, a Manager, Cyber Remediation Operations. All right. Doug McTighe, Advent Health, Senior Risk Management Specialist. Thank you, Doug. Thank you, Doug. Daniel Menig from Weiland, IT Manager. All right. Blair Jackson from Emerson International, IT Manager. Here in spirit once again. Chelsea Hernandez. Whoa. Did we have Chelsea already? You did just get yours. Did I name Emmanuel Morales? Okay, I did. I think there was a duplicate that made its way in here, so apologies. That's not ever happened before. I'm going to just, you know what? I'm going to blame it on AI. Thank you, Sanjay. Not like the first time we've heard about that today, has it? No. Jason Ford, TBI Airport Management, IT Director. Jason. Jeanette York, Finastra, Vice President and Chief Auditor. Jeff Billy, USF Credit Union, Information Security Officer. There you are, Jeff. Jose Trujillo, Business Information Security Lead with US Foods. He's right there behind. Our friend Nicholas DeMeo from Vista Clinical Laboratory, Chief Information Officer. And I know this is closer to home for you now because we really enjoyed seeing you in Tampa as our keynote speaker earlier this year. Thanks, Nick.
Thank you. Great to see you here.
Nicole Sayer from the Walt Disney Company, Security Engineer. All right, and then this brings me to our fantastic panel that's already joined me on stage. We have Luciano Ferrari, CISO from Stacks Payments. Chris Kistler from Access Telecare, Chief Information Security Officer. Sanjay Deo from Amplix Company, SVP Chief Cybersecurity Strategist. And last but certainly not least, our moderator for today's panel discussion, Rich Latayan from AAA, Chief Information Security Officer. All right, Rich, I'm going to go ahead and hand this over to you as you guys take us through this final session in today's conference, Securing the Future. CISO Insights and industry leaders discussing current cyber threats and strategic defense practices. Take it away.
Thank you, Andrew. All right.
Round of applause for that.
Good afternoon, everyone. I saved the best for last. I'm talking about the food and the beverage, that is. So, securing the future. So, no better time to be a cybersecurity professional. We're in just about every conversation, right, in the organization. Front and center, it used to be about protecting systems and then mostly applications. Prior to that, it was network. But now it's really about protecting the business. And that's core to a lot of the organizations, right? And we're not in a back office function anymore. We're frontline drivers for resilience. We heard that a lot today. For the trust for our customers and our partners. And then also, we're also looked at as a competitive advantage in terms of what we do. At the same time, of course, the threat landscape is evolving faster to a degree that it's hard to keep up. The velocity of AI stretches our defenses, our capability to do that. Deepfakes are challenging our trust, what we see, what we hear. Quantum computing, we heard a lot about that today. It's no longer theoretical, right? It's real. The preparation is real. And so across all this, the role of the CISO is expanding. It's no longer technical expertise, but it's really enterprise risk leadership. And so this shift from technological to strategic is due in part, we used to be asked, are we secure? I hear that a lot, cafeteria, or executives ask that, but now it's shifted over to resilience. And how are we doing with that? Can we withstand disruption? Can we recover given all the face of uncertainty? So today, we're going to take a look at these aspects, particularly in AI, what's truly delivering value. How are we addressing new risks? We're also going to look at emerging threats. Again, it's no longer hype, but what's the sense of urgency? And then also effective cyber leadership, what that looks like to the other executives and board. And finally, of course, we need to measure what actually matters. And then it's not just the activity, right? It's the outcome. So probably a little bit of an introduction. Rich Latayan. I am the CISO for AAA Inc. No better place to have this conference because it's less than 10 miles from where I live and where I work. I've been in the industry for about 20 years in security, and at AAA, we have travel business, insurance, and then also most of you, I'm sure, are members for our automobile and roadside service. And then we also have credit cards, which I am taking advantage of lately. And then for the rest of the crew here, our distinguished CISOs, Sanjay, why don't you start?
Sure. Good afternoon. Sanjay Dev, I'm the Chief Cybersecurity Strategist and SVP at Amplix, which is an IT services company. My background is over 32 years of IT security. Funny enough, I was doing IT security back in the days on the UTS, Amdahl, and IBM mainframes, and then came all of the super minis and things like that. So, just funny anecdote. I used to do AI programming 32 years ago using Lisp and Prolog. And that time, AI was just a buzzword and a research topic, and for 25 years, AI just disappeared, was in the background, and suddenly in the last 3 years, everybody's talking about AI. The big difference is now we have data. So we can train all of the algorithms we were writing 25, 30 years ago and use those algorithms rather than theoretical paper exercises. So, but yeah, glad to be here. Thanks, Rich, for inviting us.
Yeah, thanks so much. My name is Luciano Ferrari. I'm the Chief Security Officer at Stacks Payments. We are a payment gateway company that is based here in downtown Orlando. I'm living here as well, but I moved recently from Phoenix, actually, so I'm kind of new to Florida. So I said that I'm changing to deal with scorpions and navigators. I don't know if it's a fair comparison, but yeah, so I'm over 25 years of experience in cybersecurity as well. Recently, I developed a tool called AI Risk Inspector that helps find vulnerabilities in LLMs. Man, it's been a real challenge now to deal with a company that is a payment gateway, level 1 PCI compliance, lots of different new things to deal with, like frauds, credit card frauds, and other kind of stuff. Cool. Happy to be here, too.
Hi, everyone. My name is Chris Kissler, and I'm CISO for Access Telecare. I've been around the industry for a while, probably 35 years now altogether. I actually started in law enforcement back in 1985 and flipped over to computers in 1995. A lot of other things. I also got a psychology background. I did some psychotherapy for a while, counseling. So I like to think I have a little bit of insight on some of the attackers, right? I've done a lot of studying there. I've been very actively involved in incident response training. Risk management has been one of my passions, vulnerability testing and scanning. I'm definitely on the side of the more technical CISO, right? I came up through the trenches and then kind of added the strategization, the strategy and other business aspects along the way. Access Telecare, right? Healthcare is an interesting area, so please don't hesitate to hit me up during or after the conference. Healthcare has unique challenges to some of the other, good security is good security, but then we've got additional regulatory and other challenges there with healthcare. So that being said, AI is certainly there for us, right? You guys, I'm sure, seen all the new legislation and laws coming out around using it in healthcare, which again kind of slows us down a bit, right? I've got my C-levels that are wanting us to get stuff out the door, and then we're trying to slow things down and keep it slow and steady, right, as good security people do. We want to enable the business, but we need to enable the business securely, not after the fact when we've lost all the data. So, good concepts, and everybody being here, right, that's a testament to your desire to get ahead of it. And to me, that is the best strategy you can do, right? Our job as CISOs and as security professionals is not to be knee-jerk reactionists doing what we're told, right? Our job, in my eyes at least, as security professionals and CISOs in the industry and IT professionals, is to be able to predict what's coming on with some certainty, right? We know AI is coming. We know the threats are going to increase. We know the levels are going to increase. So we need to get in front of that and be making those recommendations to the business on what we need to implement as we're going, not wait until after we're hacked. And I kind of rambled on. I tend to do that. But thanks, everyone. I'm going here. We'll pass it on to the next.
Well, that's good. We, I believe, are certainly business enablers. And then on the flip side, right, we have incident response to make sure that we're protected and secure and so forth. So a few questions we'll ask, and then we'll turn over to the audience, maybe in the middle, if you have any pressing questions for us. But start off with kind of an easy one. In terms of business-aligned cybersecurity leadership, what does that look like in practice?
Business-aligned cybersecurity practices?
Yeah.
I think that's a new term, right? Why can't I just download DeepSeek on my phone and run my models, right? Why do I have to comply with But I think that is the question that all leadership is struggling with, right? So in talks with different departments, you will suddenly find out that somebody's using Copilot, somebody's using ChatGPT, somebody's using Claude, and most of those are personal subscriptions that cannot be governed. And they don't come with a BAA or with assurance that your data is not going to get out to the web. So the top-down answer is, build a charter, build a AI governance committee, write a policy, write a procurement policy, write a acceptable user policy, so every user knows that as part of IT and IT security, there is a way to consume AI in a hygienic way, I guess, AI hygiene way, new term. But that is what everybody's at the moment struggling with. You heard last week one company had which I'm still trying to figure out how it is, but they had a $500 million Claude token expense. Can you imagine you're the CIO of that company or an app dev manager who's one of the developer wrote a query that generated that kind of token? So those are some of the things that's happening. I think accountability is becoming a big issue in the development shops when coders are vibe coding and the code has a bug, right? Previously, you could walk over to a development coder and say, hey, that's your code, there's a bug, go fix it. But in vibe coding, it's an assembly synthesis of 1,000 other lines of code that nobody has ownership with. So who do you attribute the bug fix to? I think that's becoming a huge issue in dev shops where there is all of AI being used for vibe coding going on. So, how do you align the usage of AI along with the business? Every industry has their own problem. Hospitals, chief nursing officer goes to a seminar or a conference and finds a awesome workload AI model, swipes his card, brings it in. Chief surgery officer goes out and finds a camera-based detection AI solution, swipes a card, brings it in, and the poor CISO has no clue what's going on. I think those are some of the things that we are starting to see permeate in the organization. And I think as CISOs, it's our job to come up with creative ways of not slowing down innovation and usage of AI, but to align it with the business objectives and create an environment for how to use it properly.
Yeah, I agree. That's true. And it's kind of hard because I think there is a big problem that is even before security, right? People are using AI, but it is hard if there is nobody in the organization that is helping to drive AI properly. So it's going to be useful, right? So people are going to use it wrong, and it's not going to help the business. And even worse, it can even make the business worse, right? So I think you have to think about that. It is not only a security problem. It is a problem that is before security that the company has to take care of, right? We from security as a CISO, we cannot fix all the problems, right? We can help with the security problems, but not with all the other problems that AI is bringing to. I'm hearing a lot of different stories, right? Some companies already are claiming, I was with a person and said, we have 2,000 employees and 400 agents. So they're already counting 400 agents as kind of a small employees, right? They are doing job for them, right? Is this being used for, are they using that properly? So are these really driving revenue to the company or not, right? For security, I think, even before talking about controls and all kind of stuff, I think the main issue and the problem for security is really more about inventory. Even before talking about inventory, you cannot control anything if you don't know how your organization is using AI. What kind of a data the AI agents, whatever, are touching, or how employees are using AI, if they're using commercial tools, if they're using sanctional tools. There's a lot of different things. And before even talking about controls, you have to better understand how you're using AI. And then after that, you can start creating some strategies. But, so we have to make sure we put things in the right order here, right?
I'll keep my answers short this time for everybody. So for me, strategy is around keeping it simple, right? As I said, I'm very tactical and operational focused. And in my world, I'm constantly telling my staff and employees is like, hey, guess what? AI is no different. It's not. AI is no different than anything else you're rolling out in your environment. It's not that special. It's just another application. It's another privileged user that you have to manage, right? It's new code coming into your environment. But almost every company I've met already has processes for this. They've got existing procurement processes, they've got existing deployment processes, change management processes, but for some reason, everyone, all of the general users think that they're just going to skip over all that because it's AI and none of that other applies. And we need to kind of change that perspective. Because all of your existing policies, procedures, and things have to fall into place. And then AI just has a couple more hoops for people to jump through to get it out there, right? But it's just another application, just another system with a new set of risks. And that's how we need to treat it. And to me, it's most efficient if we keep it standardized with our standard processes. So, there you go.
Yeah, I can't agree more. I always talk about the fundamentals need to be in place, right? The asset inventory, and then the process policies and some of the tools that we have in place are important, and we should leverage those. Of course, there's nuances in AI, but for the most part, we've been doing this forever, right? So now, when we take a look at the communication towards other executives and board members, can you give us some tips around the communication techniques to convey the importance of AI and really how we share how prepared we are with cyber risks?
I'll start off. Oh, do we got this mic on? There we go. All right. From my perspective, so again, starting with the risks, right, and addressing that, what we're going to do with AI. And can you go with the question once more so I make sure I hit that point?
Just any kind of communication tips when we talk to non-technical executives about cyber risk?
Yeah, and I think the one part you said was motivating the board or the C-levels. And I find I've worked in a couple different environments, and I find a couple different, right? For me, an IPO company or one that's going IPO or one that's publicly owned is different than the private equity space, right? I've seen a difference in private equity versus public companies versus companies that are non-for-profit, right? And all three of those seem to have very different objectives. But what is consistent is, at least what I've seen here, is not trying to sell the board or the private equity firm or whoever the leadership is that they need AI, right? What I'm seeing is exactly the opposite. I'm seeing all of the leaders and board members and top executives all screaming for AI. They all want AI, and they want it now. And I'm seeing the IT and security departments, slowing it down just a little bit, as they should. And just to keep it again, we need to enable it, but we need to enable it safely and to avoid some of the pitfalls, right? Someone else, brought up and mentioned, hey, there's been companies that have had, $500,000 of token billing, right? Well, why did that happen? Right? That happened because they weren't monitoring and managing it, and they didn't have the proper management in place, right? We can't go deploy AI ad hoc. We want to deploy it quickly, rapidly, efficiently, but it needs to have the controls around it, right? We have the control structures in place. What we need, and well, I'm going to go off on a tangent. This is my opinion, not that of my employer, right? But we need to enforce this. If AI is so great, if Anthropic is so smart, if OpenAI is so smart, if Gemini is so smart, why are they not, and pressure the vendors, guys, join me. Why are they not forcing secure code for everything that gets written in them, right? Secure coding practices, we've got training out there published. Secure coding practices, we've got developers that know how to do it. We've got OWASP LLM Top 10. We've got the NIST AI requirements. Why isn't all of that pre-programmed into these LLM models to where they build it securely by default and they make the user go through bark screens if they do so? Are you sure you want to code this in securely, right? Why isn't that there? When that happens, I will be on board these AI vendors all over the place, right? That's what will make it safe to use. We've seen a start with that, with some of them releasing some security models, but that should be the starting place, right? And I wish that we had gotten on this earlier, because if we had all ganged up on these companies to begin with, they wouldn't be so popular in being out there. We wouldn't have this shadow IT problem, because they'd all be writing fantastic code, right? The capabilities are there. Why aren't the vendors doing it, right? Join me and pressure them, folks. Send a letter to your vendors today. Thanks, I'll stop.
Yeah, you brought really great points. Thanks for that. The way I try to approach this is, one way is that first, we have to start getting over some old bad habits, right? One of them is really more about, for example, bringing to the board like raw counts of vulnerabilities. So why would you go to the board and say, oh, we have 25,000 vulnerabilities here? Why that's important, right? You need to start tying things to real business risks, right? That's one thing. And specifically for AI, because the question is more about AI, so I try to bring that in two different aspects. One is how our team is using AI to make our team super hyper productive, right? And not just bringing more data that would be maybe more noise that is not going to be, able to help anything. It's really more something that it really can bring value to the company, right? And the other aspect is about the company wants to advance the use of AI, right? And they want to do it fast. They want to do it now. So how the security team can help protect that? So I don't want to just keep writing security policies and saying in front of users, so they're going to read that and say, oh my goodness, I don't know. Maybe I should not use it, because if I could be in trouble. So we try to be a little bit more transparent. So let's put controls, right? Let's try to use your DLP, new AI features in place. Let's try to sanctions and try to drive your MCPs, inventory, all that kind of stuff, and start doing the protection in a way that is transparent to users, right? So that's kind of the way.
Yeah, I know that there's a level of reporting around controls, as you mentioned, and the risk. And then we heard today that no one gives the board number of vulnerabilities, right? That's not a win-win situation. It's probably a lose-lose. Can you guys provide some, more outcome-driven metrics that you share with the board?
From a cybersecurity perspective, I think the board is receiving training from wherever they go to get training to start looking at NIST CSF 2.0 as a model, right? What are the questions some of the boards where I have to present ask? It's like, hey, last year the NIST CSF score was 3.2, and you guys had talked about we are going to get to 4. You asked for like $3 million CapEx and OpEx. Where are we this year? So the board is starting to get tuned to some numerics, quantitative-based progress. So I think that's one of the clear idea is to get your cybersecurity team together and talk about how do you quantify the progress, right? How do you take cyber hygiene from one level to the next level? And so the most common model that's being used right now is NIST CSF 2.0. There are other models that have entered the market, the FAIR, but those are some very technical and very quantitative. You have to get your whole team. So that's one idea. In audit committees and more smaller groups where there is a cybersecurity expert, some messaging is more around number of vulnerabilities, right? So patch compliance, vulnerability assessments, the last year's risk assessments report, and where is the corrective action plan. So there are ways to sort of tie your IT security investment to the vulnerabilities and the progress that you're making. But it's sort of more of an art, because you have to take 1 or 2, maybe 3 quarters to train your board. Because the board is reading the Wall Street Journal, board is going to the NACD, board is going to Cornell to take the 2-week certification course, and they will walk in and they'll say, hey, what's our NIST CSF score? So that's what was happening 2 years ago, right? When all of this certification process started at the board level. So, so you have to be proactive in understanding what the board is looking for, what kind of board you have. So there are some of the hospitals that we deal with there where there is a community board because they are community-owned hospitals. Community boards are the local bankers and lawyers, and they don't know what an SCSF is. So how do you start to, so you have to train the board, that's on you, and then you have to start producing quantitative reports tied to some financial outcome or vice versa. The other thing is you have to sort of train your board as to, I have 1 million health records in my EMR. The cyber insurance equates to X and Y, right? This is my premium, this is my deductible, and I need X amount of money to mitigate some of these things. So next year, I can reduce the premium and I can reduce the, so there are many, many ways, but you internally will have to sit down and negotiate this with your CIO. You and your CIO have to be in tandem with the CFO so that the messaging is very clear as to what the investment is, what the IT budget, security budget is, and how is it tied to outcome, and can the outcome demonstrate that there's progress being made. The counter of that is the next question they're going to ask is, what are you going to deal with Mythos? How will you deal with Mythos? How much money do you want for Mythos? So those are some of the things that you have to think about. You can't ask for unlimited money and say, I need an unlimited budget to deal with Mythos. Again, those are some of the things you have to sit with your team and negotiate. How are you going to present all of these things, and how will you ask for more money? Because you don't get money in just one board meeting. You have to train 2 or 3 quarters, and then in the 4th quarter, you go get the money for the next year.
Well, thanks. You said a lot of interesting things, and one thing that I liked to me was key, that you said, depends on what board you have. That's true. Some boards, you just give you a template, hey, fill that every quarter, and that's it. Some of the boards, you just like, you have one slide over like 300 slides in a 6 hours meeting, and you just have like 5 minutes. So it depends, right? But what I try to do, as soon as, when I can, I try to really bring something that is really interested for the business, which is what? Uptime, reliability, compliance, that kind of stuff. So I'll just give you an example, I'll give it to you. So simple. For example, I'll try to bring something very precise, like, hey, we have 12 systems here that deals with consumer, customer revenue that are associated with customer revenue. I don't know, and then 4 of them have exploitable exposure, and then 2 of them does not have a test recovery. And what we need is this: we need one of those 3. We need acceptance, like of the risk. We need to accept the risk, or we need a plan to an approval for downtime if something happens, and what are going to be the decision, or a prioritization on remediation. I'll give you 3 options. That's what you need to decide.
Thanks. So this is another one dear to my heart, but I will keep it short. And this is close to my heart because I really messed up on this for a lot of years, right? I was so proud of my tactical security stuff, and I'm doing metrics for the board. I'm like, look, this is how many vulnerabilities we have, and this is how many I reduced it by last month, right? And then there's more coming in, and I was so proud I had cut 200,000 vulnerabilities off of the list and blah, blah, blah. And the board doesn't care, right? They don't care about how many vulnerabilities there are. They don't care about how many you fixed, right? This is a key thing because I was all wrong about it. What I found out the hard way is the board cares about the risk to the business. They care about what is security doing to save me money? What is security doing to keep me from spending money, right? It's an insurance thing. We're usually seen as a cost center. But if you want to get more value from the board and get more buy-in for your security services, you need to present it in a manner that the board can accept. It needs to be presented to them in business financial information. They care about the money and the profit to the company, resource savings, right? Instead of saying how many vulnerabilities I stopped or how many email attacks, I stopped 100 phishing attacks. Well, you need to put that into what they can understand, that by not having to respond to 100 phishing attacks, I saved 420 hours of people's time at $80 an hour, and that's a number they can now understand. Oh, you saved me $5,000 in response costs. Okay. Or you saved me $20,000. Or this new tool that you want to buy will save me X number of dollars in response costs. That's what the board needs to hear. It needs to be in business numbers.
Yep. So if you're not generating revenue, you better be demonstrating risk reduction, right? So, I think we all fell for that trap too early on, reporting the number of vulnerabilities. But, and to your, go ahead.
So just going back to what he was saying, so I used to report how many scans on the firewall. Got it. So I used to report number of scans on the firewall, DDoS attacks, and early on, 4 or 5 years ago, it was okay. But suddenly we started to see a lot more scans from the state-sponsored actors. And the DDoS attacks were becoming bigger and bigger and faster and faster. So you're sitting before the board meetings like, how am I going to, what am I going to tell them? That the money we spent last year is not able to reduce this because this is not in our hands, right? This is a third party that's attacking us. So you have to get smarter after you get beaten up a couple of times because the board members are going, but those are the North Koreans. How are you going to stop by spending $1 million, right? So you learn, right? You learned after a few.
Just want to add one thing. That's perfect. Another reason I give you to not report vulnerabilities, right? Counts. Another reason. There's another reason.
These are all lessons learned, by the way.
Yeah, all lessons learned. For example, you can be punished for the wrong thing. So let's see if you have one scope, a limited scope, and you're scanning, and then okay, now I have more money, so I have more licenses, I can scan more stuff. What's going to happen? Your vulnerability count is going to be up, and then you go to the board. Oh, but what's going on? You went up, but that's a good thing, right? No, it's a better good thing. You see what I mean? So you're going to be punished because you're increasing your visibility. So don't do that.
One of the good things, obviously, we need to report is that scale that we're constantly improving our security posture, our program, and to your point around the CSF, that's a great framework. And then some of that has to do really with resilience, right? So how do you measure, report that, and I want to say on a continuous basis, right? Because resilience isn't necessarily a point in time, because if you're measuring it once a year, well, we know what happens. That's kind of audit for you, right? Once a year, and we know there's gaps in that. So how do you do that? How do you monitor continuously?
Everybody's going to need to do it, different for their environment, of course. What I do in the programs I build out is around BCDR, right? We call it business continuity, disaster recovery. And the first thing I do when I go in and do a program or revise a program is separate the two, right? To me, that's the most valuable thing you can do in my eyes is you separate the two, right? Disaster recovery is recovering from a large disaster, right? You lose an entire site or an entire city or an entire location, right? Business continuity, on the other hand, is much smaller. So it's typically looking at how do you recover from an individual application? How do you recover from an individual network thing? How do you recover from a person being out even, right? So business continuity, how do we keep the business going on these little minor disruptions that's not a full disaster, right? And then what I like to do is build my disaster recovery model that is the big one. I build it then off of the smaller ones, right? If you're following the NIST model for BCDR, you're going to do a formal business impact analysis or BIA. And then based on your prioritization of your BIAs on business continuity and having smaller plans for all of those systems, you'll then prioritize and document which of those are going to be restored in which order in a larger disaster. So, and that's going into a lot of stuff. It's kind of getting very technical. But that's a good way, right? It's just like eating an elephant. You break it down into little steps, and then you do it one little piece at a time. And that's a great way for doing it. And then you learn which of those you can combine. But it's then doing that and then repeating that on a regular basis, right? You should be doing at least some portion of business continuity testing on at least a quarterly basis with that. And then, documenting those with tickets and tracking and all that. But the first thing is just getting a process, establishing it, and getting it where it's right for the business, not trying to do a great big boil the ocean right? Do the little pieces that are most important to your business first. Identify what those critical components are, because that's what's going to do the most damage to your business if there's a disruption. And if you can address those, you'll be able to address the larger ones.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because everyone's familiar with the CIA triad, right? We were concerned about confidentiality and encryption, integrity, of course, but I'm seeing the availability side creep up now to, we all have our BCP, DR teams and organizations, but it's just, I'm seeing more involvement now in security. In fact, with them at a point leading some of the BCP, DR activities.
And I'm going to jump in. Sorry, guys. You jump in after this. Just to tie on that one other thing, because the CIA is a big thing. And it came up to me because I found a lot of times in some of the companies and other CISOs and other groups I've been talking with, the focus with AI is been on security and the confidentiality part of the CIA triad, right? And you just mentioned the availability. But what I find a lot of companies missing out, and this is key to take home for yourselves, they're missing the integrity piece, right? That is the biggest risk in AI, again, in my opinion, right? Integrity, data integrity is a bigger risk than compromise right now with AI. How many people in this room, raise your hand, how many people in this room believe your databases and your information is 100% clean?
Do you all know where they're at?
Yeah, we know it's not clean, right? Well, guess what? When you automate, activities for your staff with AI, everything that is inaccurate in your data, everything that's inaccurate is going to cause an error with AI. Do all your vibe coders know how to program error coding and error response? Of course they don't, right? A couple of them may. But the majority of vibe coders don't. It's hard to get good developers to write good error handling and input validation. Integrity is going to bite you, and it's going to bite you big, right? Because AI is not just going to make a couple mistakes like your Joe user is at the end of the table. Your AI is going to make 20,000 mistakes in 20 minutes, right? And who's going to do that cleanup? Nobody wrote an automation to do the cleanup. It's going to take you 3 months to clean it up. Now, I'm not trying to scare you off, but I'm saying this is something you need to consider, right, seriously in your rollout. And look at me, the big security person saying integrity is going to be the big risk. Yeah, it is, guys. Don't ignore it. That's the one that's going to bite you.
It's my 2 cents to add to the resiliency conversation is focus on the NIST CSF, the respond and recover. So as long as you can understand the objectives of the respond and recover, it's a good big step towards resiliency. But resiliency is actually more of a mindset, right? How do you recover from any incident, whether it's cyber, AI, hurricanes, whichever it is. But if you focus on those 2 respond and recover controls, that'll make you better in terms of resiliency.
In terms of AI, right, we all used to talk about use cases to a degree, we still do. Can you share some that's really proven some value? Value in some AI use cases?
So I guess the best AI use cases, the deployment, implementation, and outcome has been a very structured approach, right? Identifying the use case, setting up the baseline that you have manual or with people or with tools you have right now. So you define it, you baseline it, you come up with the metrics, and then you apply AI models to it. The outcome could be 2 things. One is you are making it faster, so you can probably garner additional revenue. Or if the objective is to restructure the group because of performance or because of any M&A activity. So those are the ones that we are seeing are very effective, where the CIO has appointed a chief AI officer who knows how to identify. So it requires a lot of critical thinking as opposed to how AI is actually being used and being deployed. right? Swipe a card, download the model, and start using it. That's now that basically leads to a lot of confusion and things like that. So that's how I have seen a very structured step-by-step methodology of how you're going to take a whole process or a sub-process, apply AI to it, and measure the outcome so you can justify the expense of the AI, and hopefully build a TCO for 1 year, 2 year, so that way you can show to the CIO that this AI application. I know there's a lot of confusion in the market between RPA and AI, and so you have to be very careful about what the vendor is selling you. Is the vendor taking the RPA from 2 years ago, slapping a new name and selling it back to you as an AI? That's where you have to be very careful about how you evaluate some of these models.
Yeah, I'd like to answer that from a security perspective, right? So some of the use cases to be used for the security teams, right? And I think one of the best use cases when you try to use that for situations that normally your security team is burnout, right? And with the mindset that you are not going to use AI to replace a secure employee, right? You're going to use to make sure that you're making them more productive, right? And there are nice use cases, for example, in log analysis, maybe phishing analysis, all those kind of things. So AI is really great to find patterns, that kind of stuff, right? Or even to summarize security incidents, that kind of stuff. There's a lot of use case our team is using already that is helping a lot, that if you're going to do that manually, right, it was taking too long or sometimes difficult. So one of the things that I implemented recently that is helping a lot our team is that we are putting more and more things to our AWS data lake, for example, using an enable Bedrock with AI in it. And then for people, for example, that are known to not too technical, like for example, our compliance team, they need to get some audits, internal audits, that kind of stuff, but they are not that technical. So with this, they can have an interface with a chatbot, so they can ask, for example, because that is all connected to our logs, or security logs, or from all different tools, and they can ask, please try to show me the last accounts that were created in this environment, and show me if there is an associated Jira ticket to that, for example, to make sure that they are following the process, and if there is an approval. And it takes some time, but it comes up with an answer or report. So use case like that, right? That can help a lot of compliance teams, and also threat intelligence is another way that we are helping a lot. So sometimes it takes a lot to do like open source intelligence and that kind of stuff. But if you can, use AI, because we found some new CVs or some new stuff happening, and then you can use it. Do you find instances of these hashes or something like this in our environment? So it can make a better report and much easier and faster than a kind of a person, right? So we can scale and we can do much more right now, right? So that's one of the use cases.
Yeah, our ability to scale, efficiency, right? We're finding with AI, and the shift I talked about earlier was on the technical to more strategic. So what have you done or seen successful in terms of improving our team's health? Right? Because, the minute they're able to automate something, we just give them another thing to do, all right? Because now that's automated, it's easier to do. Here's another project or whatever. How have you managed that in keeping everyone's health?
Yeah. Well, finding other things for my team to do has never been a problem, right? As you say. And my team, yeah, as far as the team's health, right? Automating things for security, yeah, every security team I know is short, right? And by us adding AI is a huge benefit. One example we've done, right, is we added some AI tooling to our phishing, right? Both our phishing response and our phishing tests. But one of the things we did is we did a thing where if you right-click and report the email as spam or phish, or if you forward it to a special alias that we created, it'll do an automatic analysis of that email for the user, right? Instead of them opening a ticket to our security team, and the security team gets to it when they get to it in the queue and blah, 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 and goes through, and then they have to spend, 10, 20 minutes reviewing it, checking the headers manually, and seeing all that. Well, man, this new tool we got, it literally does the analysis automatic and then spits the answer back to the user in like 2 minutes. right? 1 or 2 minutes that user has a response, whether it's a malicious or benign, it copies our security team, we can look at it, it goes in and highlights the headers, it highlights all the suspicious flags. There's 14 or 15 things it checks on, highlights the suspicious flags, and then when my team, if they do go to do a manual analysis, all the key things are right there highlighted. Instead of having to do manual header reading, they now get to just go there. Oh, here's the highlight, SPF, DKIM, DMARC, fail. Oh, it's bad, right? Oh, this bad attachment's highlighted, it's bad. So what a cost savings and what a resource reduction for my team. Believe me, my team that was responding to that before is so glad to be done. Yeah, they're instead of responding to 500 a week, they're responding manually to 3 a week, right? And that now is this thing I can take to my leadership. Hey, in fact, the tool actually does it for me and actually told me how much I saved, right? Yeah, according to that, I saved 100 grand in a month, but you know, we know that's oversight. But if you look at all of those potential savings, maybe that's valid. Not savings for the CFO, right? Because that's not their language. Because it's not a real. I don't be you guys, right? I don't get credit unless it's a savings off of their OpEx spend, right? If it's theoretical savings or money I save by not spending, they don't count that. But you know, that's how it works, right? Is getting that savings, and that's one way to do it. And do it smart, right? Security's got a leg up on this because we've been trying to automate our functions for decades, right? And a lot of the tools we buy already have not necessarily agentic AI, but they've had automations and RPA and other things in there for decades, right? And now the agentic is just enhancing that. So, one good example.
Good, no, thanks. No, that's great. So I just bring in a different perspective. So to me, you know, how I would do that with my team, I try to, you know, use the leadership concepts, right? So leadership 101. Things, for example, like make sure that we have a safe environment for people to share stuff, right? So that you don't get punished for, you know, what they're sharing. Make sure that you avoid ambiguities. Make sure people know where they're on and what are the areas that we need their responsibility, right? Make sure that, you know, all of the things that are typical, right? So avoid ambiguity. Avoid, for example, things that you normally, you know, you would use as a leadership. So all of this helps a lot the team, right? So.
One more question before we turn it over to the audience. How are you handling deepfakes? Any success stories there yet?
So, I guess in the identity access management, deepfakes are becoming a huge problem. So what has started working very well is whenever a call comes into the help desk, we are trying to, in some places we have mandated that we are not going to change passwords or give out any sensitive information until and unless we can confirm the identity. And so one of the tools we are using is a Teams or a Zoom call, or even a FaceTime call, where the person with his face, his driver's license, and the local identity, if they work in a hospital or if they work in a company and their badge, all three of them have to be presented before the help desk or before the customer service agent can do anything, right? So you have to establish, of course, in due time, there will be deep fakes for all three, but at the moment, at least in the last 2 years, we have been able to reduce these deep fakes where a person calls in and says, oh, I don't have my this or that, and I need to change my bank account, calls the HRP. So those are some of the things that we have been able to reduce significantly, right? If we measure what was happening 2 years ago, what's happening now, and the password resets and complaints after the password reset, that, money suddenly disappeared from my bank because somebody else called in, trying to be me, change the direct deposit information. That has, at least wherever we have implemented this methodology, has become zero. There are other issues. It's taking longer for the call, right? It's now from a 2 to 3 minute call, we are now into 5 to 7 minute call. But then that's where we have to debate the fact that do you want quality or do you want speed, right? So that's one thing.
I think the deepfakes are becoming a real problem. So let's step back a little bit. So let's talk about phishing, right? So how many decades we're dealing with phishing? Raise your hand if you think the problem was solved already. So even today, people are clicking. So to me, deepfakes are an upgraded version of phishing, right? It's going to be hard. So we're still going to have problems. And I think that detection tools are getting better. So, but to me, what if that is one of the key things is a process. I think to me, the best way to protect against that right now is like an out-of-band process that you can check, right, before taking any decision, right?
Yeah, I don't think there is any good protection for deepfakes yet. We can try to implement validation routines. I think, as you said, validation verification, right? Double checking, that's the kind of thing. And other than that, we're kind of at a loss right now, right? There's no good way to detect them. There's no really good way to identify them, call them out, other than, being suspicious, being alert, awareness, I guess. And double checking, right? If it feels funny to you, well, it's probably funny, and strange. So yeah, make a call, double check, send a text, send something out of band, right? And out of band validations is really the only defense I know of we have right now.
So the only thing at the personal level, we have a family safe code that all four of us know. Yeah. So if somebody calls in with a deep fake talking about my son or something has happened to my son or something like that, at least we can validate if that is for real or not. Now, how do you implement that at the enterprise level? I think that's a different issue.
There's a funny story that one of my colleagues said that there was a deep fake on his company, but it was live, like it was a Zoom call that then enters the CEO of the company. But it was with the voice only, not video. And he was, I don't know who was doing that, but he was doing like a real-time voice, like because he cloned his voice, he was using real-time voice cloning. Yeah. And then the people were like concerned, but one person saw that something is not quite right here. And then he asked the question, hey, you're the CEO, right? So last week you indicated to me a book for me to read. I forgot the name of the book you told me to read. What is the name of the book again? And the guy didn't know how to answer. Okay, let's drop the call. He's a fake.
And it's only going to get better, right? I mean, wait until it's interactive, to your point. Hey, we'll take some questions. I see.
So, two things. With AI, you have to turn their head sideways or lean back, and that's hard for the AI to follow that.
I think we need to wait for a mic for the online. Sorry.
Sorry. Turn that down.
There is this three-finger thing also. You put the three fingers in front of your face. AI can't.
Hello? So with AI, you can have them turn their head and lean back, and it doesn't track well typically today. That's going to get better. But secondly, when you guys call insurance companies and you're talking to them and they're validating who you are, what's one of the things they do? They want to send you a text with a code to your mobile numbers. That's pretty safe. And when our support desk is talking to somebody in one of the locations, especially in Canada, and we're in the US here in Florida, we have them do that. We know their mobile number is documented in our service desk system, and we text them a code. And if they don't repeat the code back, we eliminate that. So that's how we handle it.
Sure. And we got another question over here.
Yep.
Oh, right here. Yeah, sorry.
Let's see, so I have a question and a comment. Handling the deepfakes, the way I'm working on that currently is distributing YubiKeys, and we'll be sending MFA authorization to their mobile device. I don't like the texting thing because you can do SIMS copying and whatnot.
Sure.
I work for the government, so we deal with nation-state level attacks. But I was thinking kind of outside the box today as I was listening to everything about AI. AI I heard way too many times today. But I'm sure a lot of people in the room are familiar with like ClickFix and how it has it emulates a CAPTCHA usually, and you copy and paste it to There was recently a story about what I would call poisoning AI, where they had basically programmed ChatGPT to respond to a common Google search, and it would respond with the instructions that you asked for being actually malicious code. And it has me thinking, money kind of runs everything. AI is not necessarily self-evolving, it's us as humans evolving it, and unfortunately, the money is what's pushing AI right now.
Sure.
So, like right now, if you go to Google and you search something on Google, now it's starting to respond with AI instead of, by the way, everyone in the room put dash AI in your search and it will go back to the old search. So it makes me wonder, what's going to happen in the future if the power players want to start using AI as their new form of, say, advertising?
Sure.
You know, so you go into AI, people are going to start using AI as the new Google, and they're going to be like, hey, what's the best vacuum cleaner to buy? And it's going to spit out a result, but where did that result come from? So one question is, do you think it's possible, in theory, for people to start poisoning AI? Not necessarily malicious, but as more of a capitalist way of doing so? And then, my second question on top of that is like with the vibe code, or I say related to that, like vibe coding, what happens if people start copying and pasting code and malicious actors, especially state level actors, have gone and start programming results to give you malicious code, and these people are not programmers and they don't
Yeah.
know better. So,
No, I agree.
how do you feel about
You know, we're out of time, but yeah, the advertising in those, you're starting to see that, and too, in the Vibe code, we've seen those going up to the cloud. So, but I do want to thank everyone for sticking around. We appreciate it, and we'll be outside if you guys want to continue the conversation. Thank you. What? Great answers.